in case you missed the most recent episode of NXT, first of all, shame on you, you should be watching NXT, but second of all, you would have seen that WWE just casually announced a working relationship between the WWE and TNA that will result in matches and storylines between wrestlers from both companies. Which if you told me that 5 years ago, I'd call you absolutely batshit insane, but in today's landscape of the WWE, not only does it make sense, but it's kind of a genius move. Because on NXT, we had the TNA Knockouts champion Jordynne come out and challenge the NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez to a match, which I think will presumably be for the NXT Women's title at NXT Battleground. And as huge as this is for TNA, I think that this is absolutely vital for NXT right now. Because one of my concerns with NXT after the draft is that the main event scene of NXT was completely decimated with so many big names being called up to the main roster. Just in the span of like 3 months, they lost Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Ilya Dragunov, Tiffany Stratton, Blair Davenport, Lyra Valkyria, Dijak, and more. But this partnership with TNA will immediately help infuse the main event scene of NXT with instant main event caliber ready talent. Now, I do foresee that the relationship between WWE and TNA will almost certainly only be between NXT and TNA. I don't foresee a lot of involvement and interaction between the WWE main roster and TNA, but I could be wrong, and frankly, I want to be wrong. But in this video, I'm gonna use the main roster because I'm gonna give you what I think are some dream matches between WWE and TNA. And I'm gonna be using main roster members from the WWE roster as well as active competitors on the TNA roster. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm confident that you're gonna fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, let's jump into it. One of the things that you need to know is that TNA, formerly known as Impact Wrestling, and then before that, formerly known as TNA, they came back to being TNA, which is a much welcome change. At one point, TNA was WWE's biggest competitor in the landscape of professional wrestling, not just in North America, but like in the world. And it's gone through a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but today TNA is still the third biggest wrestling company in North America. And not only is it full of life and is it producing excellent professional wrestling, but it's also become a fantastic pit stop for some of the best wrestlers on the planet. So to me, the prospect of WWE and TNA partnering up, whether it's for a one-off PLE, maybe for matches here or there throughout the next couple years, is kind of a dream. But let's start with what I think is the first match that the WWE needs to get on the books. Now, I do believe that the working relationship between TNA and WWE is going to be mostly between NXT and TNA. However, I do think that they've already laid out the crumbs for a main roster megastar to go have a run in TNA. That, of course, being the phenomenal AJ Styles. On a recent episode of SmackDown, AJ Styles came pleading and begging to Nick Aldis, who was also in TNA at one point as Magnus, to please give him another opportunity at the WWE Championship. And Nick Aldis says, I can't make that opportunity happen for the WWE Championship. And it was left at that. And a couple more bits of information that you need to understand. In June is TNA Impact's 20th anniversary. So if we're already in a world where Jordynne Grace is appearing on WWE TV, TNA Impact's 20th anniversary is in June. AJ Styles wants to have one last run. What if Nick Aldis can't give him an opportunity at the WWE Championship, but instead is able to negotiate an opportunity for AJ Styles to have one last run in TNA for the TNA World Championship against the current TNA champion, Moose? Now, in terms of fantasy booking, I'm going to be honest, AJ Styles versus Moose is not the first matchup that I want to see AJ Styles have. But if you're going to send AJ Styles to TNA, no ifs, ands, or buts, it needs to be to chase the TNA Championship. We already know that AJ Styles' catchphrase during the time of SmackDown Live was that it was the house that AJ Styles built. In my opinion, TNA is the company that AJ Styles built. And if he's gonna have one more run in TNA, it has to be for that prestigious championship that he carried around his waist during his time in TNA. Again, I personally would pick other people that I think he would have even better matches with, but Moose is freaking fantastic as well. And at least to me, when it comes to the main event scene of Impact, it doesn't get much more main event than Moose. Like, this guy is an absolute behemoth on that roster. And obviously, far and away, this would be Moose's biggest match of his entire career, with probably the most eyeballs he's ever had on him. And I think a lot of people will quickly realize how much of a bad motherfucker Moose actually is. I dare say that Moose's chops might be worse than Gunther's. Just picture that. But again, I will say, I think that there are better in-ring possible matches for AJ Styles, but there's no debating that whoever is holding that TNA championship, that is who AJ Styles needs to go after if they do pull the trigger on AJ Styles heading over to TNA. Dude, just talking about this has me so excited. Now let's talk about the marquee women's match that I think that you need to have between the WWE and TNA. We already know that Jordynne Grace has already made the leap over to the WWE to face off against Roxanne Perez. And really, I love Roxanne Perez, but she just doesn't have the same aura that a lot of the women that are on the main roster currently have. In fact, when I saw Jordynne Grace in the ring with Roxanne Perez, to me, it was Roxanne Perez that was starstruck, because Jordynne Grace just has so many more years of experience than Roxanne. So Jordynne Grace is absolutely ready to go beyond Roxanne Perez and take on some of the heavy hitters of the women's division in all of professional wrestling. And I know that there's a lot of names coming to mind. You're probably thinking Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch. All of these are fantastic names. But I think that if you want to have the poster child of women's wrestling in TNA, you gotta have her against the poster child of WWE women's wrestling, and that is Charlotte Flair. And I know a lot of you guys are groaning, oh my God, here goes Santi once again to glaze up Charlotte Flair. But dude, Charlotte Flair consistently gives women their best matches of their career. Look at Rhea Ripley, best match of her career against Charlotte. Becky Lynch, in my opinion, the best match of her career against Charlotte. Like, she just does this time and time again. She is capable of getting the best out of the performers that she's in front of the ring against. And Jordynne Grace would greatly benefit from having somebody of the skill, aura, and expertise of Charlotte. And we've actually already seen Charlotte work really, really well with muscle mommies, as some of you guys call them on the internet, with her fantastic 7-star match against Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania 39. I'm confident that she could pull out the same type of performance with somebody of the skill and caliber of Jordynne Grace. Frankly, Jordynne Grace, when you put her in NXT, she's instantly the most seasoned and developed wrestler in the women's division, which is why I think you gotta take Jordynne Grace and just immediately put her up against the biggest name possible, the biggest, baddest woman on the yard, and that is Charlotte Flair. For the next couple of matches, I'm gonna get selfish, and selfish in the sense that I just want to see these matches because they would objectively just be so incredibly good that they would probably melt your eyeballs. So sit back, because I'm gonna give you Gunther, the King General, one of the greatest in-ring performers in the WWE today, nay, the world of professional wrestling today, and I'm gonna put him in the ring against the Human Weapon, another one of the greatest performers in professional wrestling today, in Josh Alexander. This match would fuck. In a year where Gunther is consistently putting on match of the year after match of the year after match of the year, when you look outside of the scope of the WWE, do you know who that guy is that is putting on match of the year after match of the year after match of the year? That's Josh Alexander, guys. And the beauty about Josh Alexander is that he isn't this crazy high flyer guy that does all of these super insane flashy moves. He can do all of those, but he is just such a great technical wrestler, and if you put him in there with Gunther, dude, they would make magic. I think that it would be way better than what Gunther has already put forth against technical guys like Chad Gable. I'm telling you right now, if you haven't seen a Josh Alexander match, stop what you're doing. Actually, no, finish this video, watch a couple of ads, get your boy that ad revenue, and then go watch a couple of Josh Alexander matches, because they will absolutely blow your mind. If I'm having a conversation or a debate as to who are the greatest professional wrestlers alive right now, I am tossing out these two guys into the pool because I have them up there with like the Ilias of the world, the Will Ospreays of the world, the Kenny Omegas. These two are incredible. And you're telling me that this partnership makes it so that we're technically less than 2 degrees away from getting Gunther versus Josh Alexander? Dude, wake me the fuck up because this doesn't seem real. I told you we're gonna get selfish and we're gonna continue to get selfish. I just wanna see an objectively incredible match. Ricochet, all right? Wow, Santi, you are so creative. You want to see a Ricochet match. Of course I want to see a Ricochet match. Ricochet matches, if you put them in the ring against the right guy, will be the best match of the night any given Sunday. But now you put Ricochet and you put him against the guy that may honestly be a more consistently good performer than Ricochet in Speedball Mike Bailey. You're gonna make beautiful, beautiful wrestling babies. If you don't really know anything about Speedball Mike Bailey, there are a lot of his matches online. The best way I think I could describe him, he's kind of like Ricochet mixed with Shinsuke Nakamura, like if I were to combine their two offenses. Because Speedball has that like strong style, hard-hitting nature that's very inspired by combat arts, kind of like Shinsuke Nakamura, but he can do a lot of the nutty stuff that Ricochet is capable of doing, admittedly not to the degree of Ricochet, because Ricochet may just be the best in the planet at that style of high-flying wrestling. But even though Ricochet is, in my mind, the much better high flyer in doing these crazy moves, Speedball Mike Bailey can hang. But then also Speedball adds that strong style of professional wrestling that Ricochet is so good at selling. Ricochet can make Mike Bailey's moves look like he's got chainsaws for arms. I was lucky enough to see Speedball Mike Bailey live at a GCW show, and live TV, this guy delivers a fantastic match every time he's in the ring. And more often than not, I can say the same thing about Ricochet. We're just putting two honestly perfect performers in the ring. This match would bang. It would be a 5-star affair, honestly. Sorry, 4.75, not in the Tokyo Dome, my bad. Sorry, Meltzy. I think you're starting to notice that a lot of the WWE guys that I'm picking aren't actually the guys that have the most star power, aren't necessarily the most famous guys out there. I'm picking a lot of guys that consistently deliver great matches because I just think that they're the best fit to have matches against TNA guys. And that's where Ilya Dragunov also comes in. Shocker, another guy that consistently puts on an amazing match. However, I do think I've got the perfect opponent for Ilya Dragunov because one of the unique things about Ilya Dragunov is that he is capable of making every move look like he's been shot in the back of the head. Sometimes I feel like the ref needs to remind Ilya that wrestling is scripted, that he doesn't actually need to fold himself inside out to sell moves. Well, the original person of that was Dolph Ziggler, now going by Nick Nemeth in the independent scene in TNA. When it comes to selling, it was Nick Nemeth who walked so that everybody else could run. I think the beauty of Ilya Dragunov versus Nick Nemeth wouldn't necessarily be the fact that it would be a really, really good match. It would be the fact that these guys are so good at selling that they might just blur the lines between what's real and what isn't. You might not know if somebody's actually hurt in this affair, because in the history of professional wrestling, in terms of selling, I think these two might be the best that I've ever personally seen in terms of their physical acting to make things look like they've been torn in half with a chainsaw. The next matchup that I have does involve a major WWE megastar, because at this point we know that Cody Rhodes is this fighting champion that will appear in just about every show and every single WWE premium live event. But I've picked somebody from TNA that does make the rounds across all of the independent promotions in Matt Cardona. And I do think that in terms of star power, in terms of big names between WWE and TNA, that this might be the biggest match in terms of draw power. But there's also a bit more of a sentimental flavor with this match, because we're talking about Cody Rhodes, a guy that left the WWE, reinvented himself, made himself undeniable, and returned to the WWE to become a megastar. While Matt Cardona is the guy that left the WWE, actually was fired by the WWE and demonstrated to the world that you didn't need the WWE in order to be a successful professional wrestler. They both demonstrated that if you've got it in you, if you're willing to put in the work, you yourself can become a megastar that is impossible to ignore. Do I think that there are better matches in terms of in-ring quality that are available to Cody Rhodes? Sure, but it doesn't always have to be about what happens inside the ring. It can be so much more than that. And the narrative, the story, the promos that these guys could lay at each other's doors would be just phenomenal. And if this opens the door for Brandi Rhodes and Chelsea Green to go at it, whether it's physically or on the microphone, then I'm on board, baby. For this next one, I need you to lock brains with me and I need you to see the vision, okay? You ready for this? We need Logan Paul, the social media megastar that is not just a social media megastar, but just a very, very good professional wrestler that can make just about anything feel like a big match. Logan Paul is somebody that can make anything that he touches go viral and reach as many eyeballs as possible through the power of social media. We saw the viral sensation that Joe Hendry was able to become over the last couple of months with his ridiculously catchy song that hit some of the top charts around the world, with his hilarious promo songs about people like AJ Francis, Matt Cardona, etc. Joe Hendry is a guy that understands how to manipulate social media to get himself over, and so is Logan Paul. And Logan Paul also has this unique ability to be able to work on both sides of the equation. He is able to have a super serious feud, a super serious promo if he wants to, but he's also able to work in the world of the ridiculous. And because he's able to work in the world of ridiculous, I can see him having hilarious moments and hilarious segments with somebody like Joe Hendry, while also putting on a great in-ring match as well. I really think that individually they are the best fit for one another if we're doing a WWE versus TNA cross-branded show. And let's wrap things up with a tag team match, and I think that we can create both a good in-ring match, but also just comedy gold in terms of promos. For this, give me Team Awesome Truth, the current World Tag Team Champions. And for this particular fantasy booking, they're going to take on the first class, that being AJ Francis, formerly known as Top Dollar in the WWE, taking on Rich Swann, also former WWE. Again, this is something that you need to see my vision in. In terms of promos, AJ Francis and The Miz would absolutely tear the house down. I know that you have a vision of Top Dollar if you've only watched the WWE, but I promise you that that was a held back version of AJ Francis. He is so much more entertaining, so much more ruthless on the microphone. He is cutting some of the best promos in the independent circuit today. But then on top of that, he seems to have unlocked the DLC of his insane moveset, because he has some of the best heavyweight movesets that I've seen in some time. He really was nerfed in the WWE. I think if you see today's version of AJ Francis, you're gonna be incredibly impressed. And then there's Rich Swann. If you watch 205 Live, like that era of professional wrestling, you know Rich Swann is fantastic in the ring as well. But really, what I want to see is the promos and the story that these two teams could have, because it could genuinely be gold. I'm already envisioning a world where R-Truth is expecting two guys from TNA to have a match with, and he's like, Top Dollar, Rich Swann, you guys are WWE. He forgetting that they were let go, fired, or left the WWE. And of course, The Miz would try and tell R-Truth that they are from TNA. AJ Francis and Rich Swann maybe would try and take that to their advantage and try and manipulate R-Truth. You could do some really fun things there in terms of backstage segments, promos, and the actual match itself. All right, folks, that's my list. Thank you so much for watching, but that's it. I'm done. Leave me your fantasy bookings. Get out of here.